Good morning. We'd like to get started. We said we started at 10 o'clock sharp. It's now 10 o'clock goal. And so we want to get this thing rolling. And yeah. And so I want to thank you from the driveway, the doorway in, on around, all your beautiful relatives. Thank you for being here. Thank yourself for being here. It took a little bit of time and sacrifice, a little bit of effort to be here this morning, to be here on time. Speaking personally. Today is the third annual Lobby Day. I see that today is a prayer. Today we are part of the solution. Today we're taking a step forward. Today we're here because what is happening in our lives matters, and we want to be a part of the solution. We are idle no more. Yeah. We're idle no more. Yeah. My name is Robert Sitaikum. If you don't know who I am, my dad was Chief Robert Bob Sitaikum, Yakima Wamish in Rolling, Charlotte. My mother, beautiful Suzanne Sitaikum. Hansa of the Kaw Nation, people of the southern wind in Kansas, Deer Clan. And it feels good to be here, so that's who I am. I am a grandfather of 11, father of 6. Sonny boy is here. And I'm also a husband, too. My beautiful bride, my wife, my best friend, Elizabeth Tishwak Sitaikum, too. So that's enough about me and my family. That's who we are. But there came a time when I was like, I was idle no more, and I wanted to restore native names to our holy and sacred sites, and they're not called Rainier Bakers and all these other guy names. I can't pray to a guy, so we got started, and I got involved with this. And through the help of my dear sister and friend, Anita Latch, we looked for a day to lobby and bring out some of the issues and what was important to myself and our people. And so she asked, when's your lobby day? I don't know, when it was a lobby day. You know? And so, well, it's a day when people gather, like-minded people, for certain causes. And so we checked the books, and they didn't have one, of course. You know, and so, but we do now. Yeah. We'll get it by the end of the day. So I'm really appreciative, really thankful that you care enough about yourself. You respect your elders this way, and you care about your children, your grandchildren, and the 7 generations down the road. Because we're at that end point now. We're at the point of no return. How I heard it last night from Uncle Billy Frank. We're is that precarious. Is that close? And if we don't rise up and gather and communicate or pray together, what we're enjoying now, these luxuries of air, this water, this land, and our fire, will not be there for the unborn, for my sonny boy, for my nieces and nephews, or their grandchildren. And so I really appreciate the effort, the charity that you're giving, the sacrifice to be here today, to put your voices together. It's going to be these conversations, these prayers, and days like this that are going to be a part of the solution. Doing what they say can't be done. I hope you understand me when I say that. Last night I was kind of getting the feeling when the state was talking with the tribes that they understand the strength and the power that we have now. That we are an economic muscle of this state and driving it and leading the employment in all the regions that is Washington State. We are to be dealt with now. Oh. Real good. We're getting real good. So, if you know me, what matters to me is my veterans, those I know, those who have served, those are still there, those are here, those that are coming home, the unborn, the little guys, our women, our grandmothers, our aunties, our moms, our sisters, our nieces, our wives, daughters, and everyone in between. There is no them, there is only us. There is only us. And so we need to lay aside our differences and start picking up our similarities and sharing it, educating people about these elements. Because that's the similarities that we all share, whether we are white, yellow, black, red, or whatever. We all like to drink clean water, breathe clean air, nice fire, and walk on clean land, and live in a good way. So the many different and various agencies and representatives, God bless you respectfully, for being here and manning our staff at the table, those that are still arriving. They may be the people in place, maybe the ones in charge today. But I want it to be clear that whoever walks through this door, from the unborn, these little guys here, have just as enough say. Their input is just as equal to ours. They are our leaders for tomorrow that are here today. Yeah. What they say, what they hear, the conduct and behavior that we model today, it's being recorded. These are our witnesses for tomorrow. Let them feel comfortable walking in these marble halls, these concrete walls, this funeral home. Let them feel comfortable and safe. Let us stay together and conduct ourselves in a good way. So we want to start it off in a good way. Start with a good prayer. Feel good about it. Lift ourselves up. Nurture our spirits here just for a moment, right? Then I want to call some witnesses. I want to bring that into this day. And so we'll call 4 witnesses to come up. I'm going to ask you just to kind of observe, listen, watch, record it. So our future generations, how was it done in the beginning time? How did it start out? What did it look like? In the beginning time of I Don't Know More, when one of the founders is here with us, how was it that day, the synchronicity of all these blessings and healings happen on this one day? And so we're going to ask that responsibility, so be prepared. Don't know who you are yet. So, so at any rate, let's get started, shall we? So I just want to call attention to our Heavenly Father, our Creator God, our Maker, if you will. However you understand her, him, it, our Holy Creator that is still continuously creating. Got to thinking about that first prayer that was cried all them years ago is still traversing in the universe. And ours today will simply join. And what we put out there today will be manifested in the preceding moments of this day. Heavenly Father, Creator God, Maker of all things, past, present, and in the future, ask today, this morning, this moment, healings and blessings, restored health and faith and love and hope, asking for forgiveness of any shortcomings, character defects that we might have woke up with or carried with or might have right there at this moment here, Creator God. Ask that somehow, some way, you find us here in this building, Creator God. Thank you for the safe travel here from the time we woke to the time we got here. Those still intending to be here, Creator God, ask that you bless these instruments, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Ask that you bless the instruments and the regalia, the animals sacrificed to adorn ourselves with, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Ask you somehow, some way, from the tips of our toes to the tops of our heads to the tips of our wings, Heavenly Father, Creator God, bless the muscles, the tissues, the cartilage, vital, non-vital organs, the various systems in our body, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Bless our mind today, Heavenly Father, Creator God. A lot of work ahead of us, Creator God. A lot of information coming at us at a quick rate today, Creator God. A lot of maybe misunderstanding, not knowing, no clarity in it, Creator God. Help us communicate. What do they say? Help me understand. Help us to be brave like that, Creator God. Give us the courage today, Creator God. Give us the protection, Heavenly Father, Creator God, over our instruments, and our regalia, our spirits, and our bodies, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Asking these favors, these prayers from you, Heavenly Father, Creator, Maker, God, like that, you know. Bless each and every one that is coming here, Creator God, from the unborn, the born, the little ones, the middle ones, the adults, our veterans, women, like that, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Those that are still somewhere, Creator God. Bless them. Bless the ones still coming home and the ones intending to go away like that, Heavenly Father, Creator God. A lot of work to do, Creator God. A lot of work, Heavenly Father. So bless our minds. And bless this big one right here, our medicine wheels, our heart, Heavenly Father, Creator God. These 4 chambers in here, Creator God. Emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. Helping us socially, Heavenly Father, Creator God, today. We're going to be walking out here. Going to get a lot of looks at us like that, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Help us to feel proud, strong, in a good way, Heavenly Father. Let's walk in peace today, Creator God. Sharing our culture, our traditions, our heritage. Educating people of why we do what we do. And the importance of it, Heavenly Father, Creator God. That we are not only just still here, Creator God. That we are thriving. And we are here in a good way, Heavenly Father, Creator God. That we care about these elements, the water, the air, the fire, in this land, Heavenly Father, Creator God. So from this point on, Heavenly Father, Creator God, I just want to ask that much until we have the opportunity to bless our food in the hands that prepared it, Creator God. So somehow, some way, the speakers, the witnesses, those who are here today, Creator God, bless them that gift to really have that clarity when they speak, Creator God. Give them the courage, take away the nerves like that, Creator God. Help them really change the way we feel about the world today, Creator God. Not the way we think about it. Help us today to change the way people feel about the existence of our planet and our life today, Heavenly Father, Creator God. Just kind of want to say that much at this point, Creator God. So bless each and every one of you that way. Walk in peace, walk in beauty today. Before you, behind you, to your sides, left and right, below you, and above you. Oh, all my relations. Good morning! So what I'd like to do is, I reflected on the last 2 years and how I ran things. And we wanted to be a lot more direct, a lot more effective this time around. 3rd time's the charm, I heard. So, with that, I fell back on some folks I know. And I drew on the experience and expertise of a person who travels far away and near. Her healing circle, her healing ways have made a change in the communities that she's visited and left behind blessings and people with education, with tools to help themselves and their community and their members. And this beautiful sister, buenos dias, hermana amiga, Maria Treviso is the coordinator of today. So give her a big hand. So she'll tell you how the days go.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you anything. You already know what you need to do. Erika Macuya, María de los Ángeles Treviso, hija de Leonardo Treviso, del Slera Pueblo del Sur, y María de los Ángeles Díaz Fernández, de Purapecha, de Zamora, Michoacán. Good morning, my relatives. My name is Maria Treviso, or as my mother says, please introduce yourself with your whole name, María de los Ángeles Treviso, Villa Fernández Parta III. I'm Isleta Pueblo, originally of New Mexico. Then in 1680, they moved the good-looking ones after the Pueblo Revolt as hostages down to El Paso area. And on my mama's side, I'm Purapecha. You probably heard about us. Whoa, the sound came on. Whoa. We're one of the tribes in Cherán, Michoacán, that finally got tired of the Mexican government being... I don't know if they could be worse than the U.S. government sometimes, but they decided since we're the landlords, we're going to take responsibility for our trees, for our families and our children, and we're going to police our children, our trees, because there was illegal logging going on there, and that's a whole long story, and we could talk about it all day. But I welcome you in a good way as an activist, a lifelong activist. My family, like your families, have been involved, regardless of where we come from, in the caring of our children, the environment, the water, the air. And I welcome you in a good way. I hold my hands up to each and every one of you today. Some of you have been identified, or you identified yourself, that you are going to be helping us with some of the groups. For those of you who have, I thank you very much. And for those of you who haven't yet, there's still some cards here. And if you want to facilitate a group, that would be great. And by facilitate, I mean just listen to the conversation, talk with each other about those things that are important to you, that are important to us. When I was speaking with Robert and Elizabeth and Shelley earlier, how we're going to do this, part of what we were talking about is that we can't say, well, that person's in charge over there, because the reality is you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. And the reality is that you're in charge. Yes or no? Yes. So I have the responsibility of whatever group we get into, that we actively participate in that group, whether we're going to be speaking on children's issues, vet issues, tar sands, child care, education, etc., etc., etc. So we'll have opportunities for that. We had called some relatives to help us out with several of the areas of concern that were identified, but we're not limited to those things. So some of the groups will be coming up later on and speaking and giving their 1-minute commercial, 2-minute commercial on the various groups. The groups that haven't identified themselves yet are Violence Against Women's Act. Maybe they came in the room, I don't know. Indian Child Welfare. We will be having a speaker, but we're looking for the facilitator for that group. The Fisheries, and Fisheries deals with water and salmon sustainability. And there was some people coming from Yakima who were going to speak on education. And also we had some people coming over to speak on the progressive majority, to help people who have decided at this time in their life to maybe run for office. And if that's you, if you have the audacity to want to represent the people and put yourself out there, they will help you fine-tune that so that you can go forward and help us, and so we can help you become elected.
Yeah.
My sister has handed me the list of our witnesses, and we're going to ask those witnesses to come up here. And we're going to compromise you, and we're going to gift you with a coin to compromise you. So I'm going to call out 4 people. So 4 people up here. Anna Halal, if you could come up over here to our side. Warren Gold, Sherry Berry, and Paul Wagner. And just stand right here and
in front of the blanket.
The blanket. They want you to stand.
Just stand back here, Andy.
Warren. Sure. Yeah. Testing. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. just to make it clear to our witnesses here, they go, oh, they gave us blankets and cedar and everything, and a Sacagawea dollar there. But with these gifts comes responsibility, and we asked you to come up as witnesses, and some of you already went, oh man, that means I have to stay here all day. They're going to put me to work. And part of it is that we're going to ask our witnesses here to watch us today. For our elders, for our witnesses, the young and the old together. They're going to watch us, they're going to listen to us, they're going to hear us. They're going to see what we're doing. They're going to watch what we say, they're going to hear what we say. And then at the end of the day, as we start to come after everybody's reported out on what they did, they're going to tell us, they're going to reflect back to us what we did, what they saw us do, what they heard us say. And like I was telling Anna earlier, I may be 60 years old, but when I tell my mom this is what I'm doing or what she watches me do, she's 84 years old, and then she'd say, well, this is what you're going to do. All right? So the witnesses take that part. Right, Anna? Yes. So she's going to be watching me, and if I step out of line, or Robert, or any one of us, they have the right to tell us, this is what you need to do. You need to be over here. So at the end of the day, they're going to be giving back to us. They're going to have a time to tell us what they saw today. So it's kind of like when you're at Grandma's house and you're there and you're doing stuff and Grandma's watching. That's it. That's the protocol. And we have this, whether we're in the Southwest, we're on the East Coast or whatever. This is a tradition that comes back from us. Whether, like Robert said, whether we're white, black, yellow, or red, we have these traditions in many of our communities. So we want to thank you all, and you've been gifted, and I want to shake your hand in a good way for helping us out. You can give them an applause if you want to. Who did you want to speak at this point? Introduce him now. Shankar? Yeah. Without further ado, we're going to have a series of speakers that are going to speak before we go into our mixed group. So I'm going to invite Mr. Shankar from the ACLU to come share some good words for us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, it's a real honor, and I'm so proud to be standing here. I've been asked to speak to Native American Lobby Day today and stand in solidarity with my Native brothers and sisters. And it's also heartening to see that there's so many of you here come to participate in our democracy and make your voices heard. I think, as Robert mentioned earlier, you know, this process is really an open one. It's for you to come and make your voices heard. And not to be intimidated, because your voices do count every bit as much as everybody else's. And so I commend you for doing the right thing and being here today. I am here to talk about one piece of legislation. It's called the Washington Voting Rights Act. And it may actually be, you know, every bill is important, but it may actually be the most important bill that goes through this legislature this year. And the reason for that is that it's not just about a piece of policy, it's actually about access to our democracy. It's about making sure that every single vote counts equally, and that communities, particularly communities of color, have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. We have not had that in Washington State, and as we can attest to from the experiences of many of our local communities, it is often very difficult for a candidate of color to go up against a better funded candidate where that individual may be better known, may simply have a last name that's more familiar to somebody who's just looking at a vote card. And that's a very, very difficult thing for candidates of color to break through. So what the Washington Voting Rights Act actually does is provide tools and incentives where election systems at the local level are shutting out candidates of color to allow their election systems to be changed so that there's a level playing field. We think this is very important. We've had the Federal Voting Rights Act for a number of years now, and that has resulted in some change. But the Federal Voting Rights Act is not accessible to a lot of people because it involves expensive federal litigation. What we're trying to do with the Washington Voting Rights Act is actually create an incentive for local jurisdictions to change their election systems voluntarily before they ever get to the point of litigation, so that they have district-based elections that give candidates of color a fairer chance to get elected. And it does also open up the state courts so that that's a more accessible way than federal litigation for a lot of local jurisdictions. And we think that if we make this change, we're going to see a lot of these jurisdictions actually take a look at themselves, ask themselves, hey, we have a problem here. Is there a problem in terms of shutting out candidates of color that we need to address? And if they do, the bill allows them to actually fix that problem without ever getting to litigation. So we had a bill come out of the House. So the bill passed the House last week. Very, very exciting. We're halfway there. But the Senate, as everybody knows this year, is a tougher challenge than the House is. How's that? Better? Okay. Sorry about that. So, as we know, the Senate is a tougher challenge this year. Unfortunately, when the bill came out of the House, it was not bipartisan. And so, what ended up happening is that
Just speak up. Just Shankar, while he's doing that, just go ahead and speak up nice and loud.
Okay. So the problem has been that the bill has not been bipartisan, and we really do need to keep some Republican sponsors on board. We're going to have to do that, as you probably know, to get the bill out of the Senate at all. So what I would encourage you to do in your visits today, particularly if you're speaking with Republicans in the Senate, please encourage them to take a look at the Washington Voting Rights Act and understand that this is not a bill that is intended to bring litigation down on the heads of local government. It really is to make it a fair playing field and equal voice for every community. And if you're speaking with Democrats, encourage them to reach out to Republicans in the Senate and make sure they understand that this is an extremely important bill to our communities and to communities of color. So thank you for your help. Again, I'm happy to see that you're all here, and I encourage you to support the Washington Voting Rights Act. Yes, please.
I just wanted to make a recognition. Is it the prime sponsor of this bill, Luis Moscoso?
Yes, Representative Moscoso.
And doesn't this bill, in fact, encourage local jurisdictions to start district-based elections instead of at-large elections, in which, if anybody wants to see a model of how that works, the movie Milk illustrates very well that once you do district-based elections, you can get minorities of many different kinds, people of color, elected by their own constituents in their neighborhoods.
That is exactly right. I think there's such better. District-based elections are cheaper. You don't require the citywide name recognition. You actually have, you have communities and communities electing local leaders. There's not really a substitute for that. And frankly, this bill also goes beyond communities of color because in some cities in our state, it's actually difficult to just get a candidate that's even been to your neighborhood. Many of them might live in a concentrated area near the center of the town and will come to places where the potholes need fixing or the gutters and sewers, just basic stuff like that. So this is about electing someone who actually cares about your issues and will work to fix them. So thank you for mentioning Representative Moscoso. You're right. He has been tireless along with the caucus of color in the House in moving this forward. I think he did a great job. That's why we got the bill. But we need bipartisan support. And I'm here to tell you that we will not get this bill unless we're able to pick up some Republicans, especially on the Senate side. So if you're with us today, please make sure to emphasize that.
This mic is shot.
This one works?
This one will work fine.
So I'm going to ask the speakers to use this if you need it. If not, if you're out here talking, then talk like a real native and speak up. So, no offense, with all due respect. So we'd like to call up, is it Margie? Ms. Wells? She has a prepared statement, and it's in regards to the Indian child welfare. Who's on deck? Chris Roberts? Chris Roberts on deck, Washington State Native American Caucus and Native Got the Vote. And then in the whole Progressive Majority, Noel Frank.
I'm going to introduce you and say a little bit, and then it will lead on to what you're going to talk about. I don't know whether, is this one working? Oh, I guess so. Okay, it's not working. Good afternoon, or still morning yet. Good morning. My name is Deborah Sluiskin. I resided in Tacoma, Washington most of my life in the Yakima Indian Reservation. And my parents were Annie Sampson from Upper Skagit, Samish area. We were relocated down here in the Tacoma area. My father is Lakota, from over Fort Peck Reservation. And one of the things that we came here for today is to be able to speak about the Indian child welfare. One of the things that we've noticed is many of the tribes here in Washington and all over different parts of the United States are dealing with the Indian child welfare. And what's happening is our children are being taken away. Our children are into homes. I know there's a number of cases that are all different. But one of the things that isn't happening is they're not being put into native homes. The loss of culture, language, and our traditions that have been carried on from the beginning of time have been handed down from generation to generation. And one of the things that concerns me is that I too have family, my own granddaughters, that haven't been given a chance from the time they were born, no matter what the parents did to jump through the hoops to try to get their children back, has always faced a brick wall. They don't come to the families. A lot of times what's happening in the homes is the mother was breastfeeding, this one incident. She missed one class. With that one class that she had missed, the police came up a few days later, grabbed her 2-month-old baby, and took her away, a breastfed baby. She was doing everything she was supposed to do, but because of that one class that she had missed, she had had her baby taken away. So these are some of the things that really concern me, because one of the things that happens with the children, once they leave the home, it's impossible to get some of these children back. And it's happening. From our elders told us for many years, don't ever turn your children in. Don't ever turn somebody's children in unless there's an absolute need. But make sure you have that plan for the backup, for people that's going to take care of that child. Because once they're in that system, they lose their identity. One of the things that's happening is the culture and the language being lost, because they're not taught, they're not being brought to our coastal gatherings and to our powwows, the traditions that's been carried down. And so this is not only happening, with our children, but many children all over. But one of the things I'm concerned about is that children that are our first peoples here on this land, they're not given a chance because of the fact that they're worth more money than any other race here in the United States. And so they tend to keep our children because of money. Well, that's a genocide, and I think it needs to be addressed. Our grandmothers in the Lakota Law Project are working on that. They're going up further to D.C. for this issue. I think it's well needed here in Washington State also. So I just wanted to say that much, and I wanted to introduce a sister who had dealt with this issue. And many of our parents deal with this issue of their children being taken away. It splits up our families. It discourages our children. There's many issues that we face along with this, but the story that's going to be told today with my sister Marjorie, I can't even talk too much about it because it really hurts my feelings to know what had happened. And it happens to many children. So this is Marjorie Wells. And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
First, I'd like, if there's anybody that's a representative from NICWA or ICW, could you step forward, please? Anyone that's a social worker, worked in ICW, or any representative, or anybody from legislative or Congress. I have a picture of my son up here. I want people to see how precious he was. Hello, my name is Saad Litza, come from the house of Slanai. My English name is Marjorie Wells. I am the daughter of the late Wilson Woodrow Wells, Jr. And I'm the daughter of Gloria Fairchild. On October 7, 1997, at 5:49 a.m., I was blessed with my second son, Eugene John Jackson, Jr. Every detail I remember. He weighed 9 pounds, 14 ounces, and was 22.5 inches long. Had hardly no hair. I enjoyed my son as he grew. He was an active little guy and was into everything and was curious, very curious. My children were removed from me under false accusations. It was proved medically that they were not harmed. Still, I stayed in the system for years. I battled for my children, never giving up. Went through 4 psych evals, chemical dependency assessments, numerous parenting classes, done numerous UAs, random UAs. Went to all visitations with no help, sometimes walking to see my kids for miles. This is my dedication to my children. My son went for a visit with family, and again false accusations were made, and again my son was removed from me, just him. And months later my son fell under foster care through the tribe. I was never informed, nor was I ever informed from the transfer from one tribe to another that was made. Then came the threats of parental termination. I battled that. Long story short, my son was denied visitation with me under false stories and lies, and also his siblings were denied visitation or any contact whatsoever. Years went by because I was told my son didn't want to see me or his siblings, and I didn't want to disturb his life because of the length of time he was with his placement. So I backed off giving this information. Later I was contacted by my son via Facebook. We talked, and all the stuff I and my son was told was lies. My son wanted to see me for years and was told I wasn't healthy. Lies again. On October 26, 2012, I was called by the grandfather on the dad's side crying. I was like, what's wrong? Then I was told my son committed suicide. I was totally devastated and angry. I was told the day after. These people knew how to contact me. My son was depressed because he was taken from the only home he loved, the Push, where he was culturally involved and loved his traditions, and was moved to Mukilteo and placed in a Christian school. Culture shock for sure. He made pleas to go back home and was ignored. He asked for visitations with me and his siblings and was ignored. My son made the permanent trip home. I will never see my son again in this world. I will never hold my son again in this world. I will never be able to speak to my son again in this world. All I have is our memories and chat I saved on Facebook, which I still message him. The Indian Child Welfare Act failed my son, failed my family, failed my children. My hopes is that ICW and the National Indian Child Welfare Association recognizes this, and hopefully somebody somewhere will hear this, and that please make tribes accountable when their ICW workers don't do their job and they fail to listen to our children. Hold them accountable. They are ruining future generations and annihilating our own children. The Indian Child Welfare Act is to ensure that families stay intact. It was not the case here or for others involved in ICW at this moment. So my pleas are, please, National Indian Child Welfare Association, ICW and any of the tribes, please ensure that another child doesn't have to go to extremes to be heard, and work with families. It's your job to ensure that this happens. Thank you, the mother of Eugene John Jackson Jr. May my son rest in peace. Born 10/7/97 to 10/25/12. You know, it's pretty hard for me to get up here and speak on this. And I just hope somebody can hear this story and take it home with them and remember this, that our children are suffering They are suffering, and it's not being recognized. They're our future generation. This is what we're giving them to bring forward to the future. So please, this is the poem that I have on my son's memorial cards. Missing you always. You never said I'm leaving. You never said goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and only God knows why. A million times I needed you. A million times I cried. If love alone could have saved you, you never would have died. In life I loved you dearly. In death I love you still. In my heart I hold a place that only you can fill. It broke my heart to lose you, but you didn't go alone, as part of me went with you the day God took you home. Thank you.
Oh. Really, give her, acknowledge the strength that Tiff is right now. I want to give this mother some cedar to help carry her. It doesn't take away the sting of what she's gone through, but it speaks to why we need to be active around our Indian Child Welfare Act and why we need to educate each other. I mean, just recently, Dr. Phil was on the TV and was very ignorant. And I wanted to reach to the TV and ask him, how's that working for you? You don't even know what the law is, and misinforming people. So thank you for having the courage today. And she's going to be with a table. These ladies here, I want to thank them for standing with her. And they'll be at one of the tables. If somehow you were touched and maybe you have a relative or you yourself have some questions or you want to be active, join them at their table to speak actively on next steps in dealing with Indian child welfare so this doesn't continue to happen. Thank you again. We're moving on. In the mixed rounds, people will have plenty of time this morning before we go to the steps, and time again after lunch to work in their groups. So look for the different groups. At this time, I'm going to be inviting a speaker. That's ringing a little bit. Who comes from the north. How many of you have heard of I Don't Know More? Yeah. Well, as usual, it seems like, and she'll tell us a story, but this is my theory, this is my myth. They got sick and tired of just watching things come down the pipe, different issues and various things, and the way the laws are, not just here in the United States, not just in Mexico, but in Canada, different laws were coming down that did not make sense and weren't respectful. So the way I understand it, the myth I've created around these women is that they said, we're sick and tired of this and we're going to do something about it. So I'm going to invite this next speaker to come up and speak to us about how a simple idea, a complicated idea, became something bigger than themselves. And so our next speaker is Sylvia McAdams from Canada, one of the, what I say, the grandmothers of the I Don't Know More. If you could please come up and warm our hearts and give us some words to go by and what to do next. A big round of applause.
Tanse kina naskum na mina gakyo tatam skat na naskum amina okite kani ganuti tiai mihad mina tatam skoal ai sino gutaga pintum chikapi big square. My name is Sylvia McAdam, as our host has said. I want to thank each and every one of you for welcoming me into your territory. I want to thank the indigenous people of these lands for allowing me to come here. I also want to thank the prayer that leads the way. That's part of our indigenous sovereignty as indigenous people all over the world. I Don't Know More came from 4 women, and one of them is a white woman. She's become a powerful sister of ours. how it happened was, I'm a lawyer, and I had been in the law school for many years. And when I went back to my people's lands, to my people's territories, I come from the Treaty 6 territory in what is called Saskatchewan, Canada now, but my people call Turtle Island. In my mind, I was going back to that childhood of those lands and those waters. And in my mind, I was wanting to go back to those. And when I did, and when I started to go back, they were gone. The rivers that I had known as a child, that we drank from, were dried up. And the trees and the land was so devastated that it scared me. But there was still land that was still there that I could still go back to. And, you know, I'm not, coming from a law background, I'm not one to say words like solidarity, unity, sisterhood, brotherhood. I wasn't. You would not have heard me speak that language 8 months ago. But since I know more, and since going back to the lands of my people, I understand that language much better. There's a spirit behind that language. So when I fell in love with the land again, is what happened. It was a powerful reconnecting of my people's lands and the waters. There were streams that I still found that I could drink from, which is really unique in this day and age, in my country, in my territory, that you could still drink water that comes from the ground. So all this was going on for me, and I was moving away from Facebook. And it just happened in October, somebody tagged me on something, and I didn't really pay attention. And then I went looking for this legislation. Here it was Bill C-45. And if you know anything about Canada, and I invite you to go and research the Indian Act. The Indian Act is still a system of apartheid that's implemented and still is being utilized in Canada. I'm a part of that apartheid system. The Indian Act dictates my life as an Indigenous person. I still carry a card that separates me. So when I came in, my host, Veronica asked me, will you have any problem to come in here? And I said, no, I won't have a problem because I have this card. And I didn't have a problem, and I won't have a problem crossing those borders because of that card. So when I started reading Bill C-45, it was a massive document, 450 pages. They introduced it on October 18th. The Canadian state introduced it. And I didn't understand it. I took out my law dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary, and I sat there and I tried to understand it. I finally had to send it to some friends of mine that had more knowledge about the law. And they came back and they said, this is what it's going to do. And I was shocked. I was dumbfounded that the Canadian state had the audacity and the arrogance again to dictate that my people's lands to be surrendered and to be redesignated for nuclear storage. Nuclear storage. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, they removed the Navigable Waters Protection Act, which protects all bodies of water in all of my people's territories. They removed that, which means all the corporations in the world would have free access to all of our pristine waters. And if you know anything about Canada, Canada right now has the largest bodies of fresh water left in the world. So when I went back to that stream of water where my people rely on to drink and access the fresh water, to use for our medicines, because some of our medicines, they cannot tolerate the chemicals that come from the tap water. We need that fresh water. I went and stood at that water and I said, I can't do it. I can no longer just stand by and not do anything. So I never met Jessica. I never met Sheila. I never met, I think I might have met Nina one time. So it was through a conversation on Facebook that we said, we can't stand by. We have to say something. There's something in Canadian law, it's called acquiescence. Acquiescence means your compliance is consent. I'm not an activist. I'm a mother. I'm content to be at home and read a book. That was me. So when Bill C-45 happened, we said, people have a right to know. Because nobody knew. Nobody was even talking about it. This massive document. In the history of the Canadian Parliament, no bill has ever been moved so quickly without any parliamentary debate through the Canadian Parliament. It was passed on December 14th. Despite all of our lobbying, despite all the thousands of us that walked to Parliament, to the Canadian Parliament. And if you know anything about Canada, it's really cold. It was snowing, and we walked, thousands of us with our flags. The Canadian government, the Harper government, passed it into law. Today, there's 13 other bills that are going through the Canadian Parliament that are just as terrible and just as detrimental to us as Indigenous people. How does that affect you? We all share the same waters. And if Canada continues to contaminate and devastate the waters, it's going to affect your water as well. I can almost guarantee you that. So on November 10th, and I think this is where being not having a background in activism, we said, let's go out there and talk to people. Even if we have to stand in a corner, and we've got to do something. We have to reach people. I'm an educator, and so are the other ladies. So we said, let's do a teach-in. So on November 10th, we had our first teach-in in Saskatoon. And before that, before it happened, we had people approach us and they said, can we sing? Can we, that's how we want to convey our message. Can we sing? And I'm very much a grassroots person. I'm not a practicing lawyer, not at all. So I came from the reservation of my people. And then when people were asking us, can we say a poem? The four founders and I kind of stood back and we looked at him and we said, okay. Okay, say a poem, you know. And this is where it grew out of. We understood that the grassroots people, their voice is creative. It's diverse. It's not a piece of paper that you can come forward with. So we opened up the floor, the microphone, and then we said, yes, say a prayer, say a song,